Hey guys, in the last couple of videos, I've been talking about, basically big societal shifts. And I guess being a sociology nerd, I would like to get into some topics that are often discussed in sociology. These are also very closely related to philosophy, um, and that being the relationship between the state, power, hierarchy, and responsibility. Throughout history, human beings have given up their power, their freedom, to experience some form of safety. And the bigger society gets, the more responsibility is really handed to people. So they look for representatives to help maintain order and control. And this is sort of the role government and institutions have always played. They are the backbone in a larger organism. They're another type of. If you see a society like you see an organism, if it gets very big, it tends to need some kind of structure, whether it's an exoskeleton or endoskeleton, and institutions serve the purpose of both. And that's all well and good. It's sort of been necessary. Uh, it's always been necessary to some degree. But with such an invention, such as the endo or exoskeleton, the institution of a large society, um, comes a price, of course. Those who have the role of the structure giver, the institution, the the people in power will have certain well, they'll have a lot of power, and a lot of the people will see them as not only representatives, that's how we see them today, but also lawgivers. We depend a lot on higher powers to influence and make decisions for us. We escape the burden of our responsibilities by giving it to somebody else, whether it's a religious power or a um, cultural power. And this is a very common idea in sociology as to the relationship between the masses and those in control of a state, a nation, a kingdom. And even we may say, look, today, do we really believe in that anymore? Well, perhaps we can understand it as a latent function of society. And what that basically means is, sure, we have conscious intent that, look, we're voting people in, we have a democracy, we have freedom to choose. And yet, what we do end up choosing inadvertently is people to represent us, people to rule us. Um, more comfortably than before because we kind of vote them in, but we still look for institutions to help control and govern society. And this seems all very common sense, but there are very big problems that happen, which, of course, number one is corruption. Power corrupts, and we have so many examples of that, it's not even worth mentioning in this video. But if we have such a corrupting, pervading, all-pervading power in society, why do we continue to use it? Well, we keep trying to invent ways to make it work better. We try to invent better forms of government. We've tried many different things, and to some degree, I can't say this whole thing has been an experiment. It's been an evolution. We didn't have every system of government always, and we've just been trying different types. I mean, this has sort of been an evolution of ideas that have become more complex as other aspects of society have evolved as well. One of the ways society evolves is through language, of course, and technology, information, how we possess information, and what that information is. The more centralized a society is, the less power general masses have. And interestingly enough, throughout history, at least at least as far as we can tell, power has been slowly, and mind you, very slowly, um, dispersing to the general public. Uh, minor and minor inventions over history have sort of given people more tools to pass on information easier and at wider levels. And this being, well, first and foremost, this being this, the pencil, writing, language, first the written word and then the, no, first the spoken word, sorry, and then the written word, and symbols and imagery. These are ways to convey ideas, and these ideas have become more complex to express ourselves, to communicate. Those who have more knowledge often enough are the ones who are in control. But what if everybody, and this is a question for modern society, if those who have more information have more control over society, those who know and those who don't, then what happens when more people know? What happens when the people who know the most is everybody? Well, that's very interesting. That's never happened before. There's always been a core group of people, even if some of them have good intentions, such as in Europe during the Enlightenment age, during the time of great revolutions, such as the French Revolution. They were enlightened despots, and there were so quote unquote the intellectual elites who supported the masses, who wanted to give them more freedom, who wanted to get rid of serfdom. And this happened during the French Revolution. They eliminated serfs, indentured servants, more like it, and they made great strides for gay rights. So, and some women's rights. Women's rights took a while, but at any rate, we've had people who try to do this, but there's still people who are on the top. Information is very centralized, and I think looking back at history and societies, we can see a general trend. The centralization, as societies have grown bigger, they've become more centralized in many ways. But there are also contradictory aspects to that. Aspects that new inventions and new types of technology such as writing and the printing press in particular that have broken down that centralization, that have unbound the locks and chains of books and given them to people. Now, I'm not saying information, I'm not saying knowledge in and of itself is the most liberating thing, but it certainly is a useful tool for a society, for more people to have knowledge. Now, there is also the case that some people have not wanted knowledge. Things have not worked so smoothly. Many people who have fought against knowing. They'd rather not know. They'd rather have faith and trust in the state. And this has become they've sort of become the role of defending the institutions. They're sort of like the immune system of the current way of life. They prevent change from happening so easily. There's a little bit of competition. But that makes the change, whatever this new invention is, that disperses knowledge and gives more power to the masses, a way to become stronger. Because this constant battling back and forth, it tends to only work when change tends to only work when the new technology that is able to spread information better is decentralized, non-linear. It's difficult to control. When you can't control through a centralized point or node, and this new, whatever this new agent is that's running amok in society, whether it's the printing press or the internet or the radio or the television, if you can't control that very easily, it becomes all-pervading and eventually topples the existing paradigm. So what we have really is a battle between centralization and decentralization. Two of them have always existed throughout all of history, but only lately have we begun to see a major shift where perhaps for the first time in history, through the internet and through perhaps future evolutions of the internet, where societies no longer need to such an all-pervading way a centralized institution, whether they be governments and schools and media, mass media. And this is probably going to be, and already is, very scary, because these are the ways society has always existed. I will continue this in part 2.